Hey, good afternoon, John Donovan. Welcome, Ruben Smith. Welcome, everybody, to the Intentional Living podcast with myself, Marty Keller, here in Sacramento, California, and John Donovan, my teacher, mentor, and co-host down in Oceanside. And we'll get to introduce our special guest in just a second. But for those of you who are new to the Intentional Living podcast, we get together on a regular basis to look at patterns of behavior that we find that kind of show up as compulsions. And we work on, first of all, identifying them and then not necessarily breaking them, but finding a better way or creating a new way to live our lives, dealing compassionately with those compulsive behavior patterns. Oftentimes, these will show up as you have that little voice in your head says, "Don't do that, don't do that, don't go there," and you go there anyway. Uh, Oftentimes, that might be something as simple as "Don't eat that donut," and we grab it and eat it anyway. Or it might be something much more impactful to a relationship. Don't say that to your wife. Don't use those words. And in anger, we might say it anyway. So we have these compulsions that live in us, and it's a human trait. We all have them. And what we do here is we work on demystifying those behaviors and sharing with you ways that you can also work on changing those behavior patterns by befriending them instead of fighting them.
Yeah.
And we have a practice we call the accountability practice that John developed over the past 25, 30 years. And we have meetings where we practice these things, and we'll talk to you at the end of the podcast about how you could join these meetings and learn about the experience of these yourself. And but before we get to that, we have a very special guest who we're welcoming back after a 4-year absence, Mr. Ruben Smith, also
Thank
down in
you.
San Diego County. And Ruben, how you been? What's been going on? What have we missed over the last 4 years?
Well, a lot's going on. A lot's been going on. I think the last time I was on the show, I had just, I guess, come up with the idea and grasped the idea that we were going to move our family to North Carolina. This was, for those of you that don't know, my sobriety began a week before the COVID shutdown. And my journey began at that point. And with everything going on during COVID and the world essentially shutting down and being forced to be around the people that I loved, that I found out I was perhaps neglecting or avoiding our relationships, that's where I found my path. That was actually everything that I needed to be, where I needed to be in order to start my journey. But my wife and I thought that it was a good idea for us to move to North Carolina. And we were very close to moving and didn't end up doing it. And that's everything happens, in my opinion, for a reason. And fast forward to where we are today, we have everything that we were looking for by moving our family across the country without having to do so. So I think that all is has been part of my experience. And um, the stars aligning, if you will. So, yeah, very, very happy to be back on the show. I miss you guys. I do check in periodically on your shows. I'm happy to hear that your podcast is over 5 years and still running strong. And John and I do touch base periodically, and every once in a while get out on the golf course. So,
Yeah. More importantly,
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and we're still working on that, aren't we, John?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, John reached out and said, "Hey, do you want to come back on the show?" Absolutely. I don't know what we're going to talk about today. My journey has really evolved once the idea of North Carolina was off the table. Um, I took it upon myself and my business partner, or asked my business partner if he wanted to take our show independent. For those of you that don't know, I'm a financial planner, and so we broke away from a larger company and are now we operate our own company. So that's 3.5 years strong, going very well. We focused from day one on working with healthy relationships. It's not necessarily about the quantity or the size of the client monetarily. It's about the relationship and finding balance between both professional and personal. So we only manage about 100 households, and I'm able to have free time in my day to coach soccer, to be a parent, and to be more present. So yeah, I'd say life is good.
You mentioned before we hit the record button that you also, as part of your business, I'm interested um, in how much separating from the old business that you and your partner belong to is part of recovery. Um, but before we get there, you mentioned that you guys have a podcast, and maybe you might tell us a little bit about that. People might be interested in it.
Yeah. So, if you would have asked me 5.5, 6 years ago, I'm now 5.5 years sober. So if you would ask me 6 years ago that this is what you'd be doing, and by the way, you'd be 2.5 years into a podcast and basically exposing yourself to YouTube and whoever wants to see it on YouTube. I mean, that can be a very vulnerable feeling. But the whole so our podcast is called Life, Health, and Wealth. It is financially focused, centered. However, it's a broad title because we like to be very community focused and bring in anyone really with a good story. It could be influencers within the community. We've had former professional athletes. We've had we're up in San Clemente, so the mayor of San Clemente was on the show. We've had school teachers, high school principals, anyone that's influential. And what we found is most people have a good story to tell. They have something, they have a story, and it's where we try to find the common ground is what they're doing in their life and their portion of the community, how we relate that back to how we run our business, which is all relationship focused. So there's a lot of continuity there, and it's not everyone has a platform to go out and be able to share their message, right? Share their story, or so we offer that as a value add if anyone wants to come in and promote their objectives or missions. So yeah, it's been really rewarding.
I'm interested in you talking about how since you were introduced to intentional living and the accountability process, we've talked about this before, how you incorporated that personal emotional work into the corporate area. It's like working with clients and having this awareness and experience of your own intentionality and your own capacity to be accountable through taking classes with me, that
Yeah.
you actually brought that into your work. And that was actually fascinating to me when you were doing it.
Yeah, very, very much so. So I was, as John knows, I was kind of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I was running two lives. So I had my professional life and then outside of work, which is where all the damage was really being done. And that I would never let anybody know what was going on with my alcoholism and my personal relationships. Once I went through the accountability program and intentional living, and I guess redefined what it meant to be an alcoholic and what my relationship was with alcohol, I realized that the alcohol was not the issue. And that's where John and I and Marty, you've been in on some of those meetings where we start doing some real deep work. And what that did is it allowed me to stand in my own convictions. It allowed me to follow my beliefs and what was, my natural interests, without fear of being called out, without fear of failing. So how I transitioned I guess slowly how this transitioned, I think it did start with North Carolina. That's a fairly large risk, right? To this idea to move your family across the country. Um, and perhaps in my old ways, I would have seen it through, even though if I had, at the last minute, like we did when we pulled the plug, even if I saw that there might be some warning signs on the horizon, I might have seen through for not, I guess, fear of, you know, not seeing it through.
Right.
Um, so I think it started there, and then it started with the idea of going on my own and being independent, and with the relationships that we have with clients, I am an open book. So it's allowed me to be more empathetic with clients. It's allowed me to um, really just build these honest, trustworthy relationships. I'm not scared to talk about alcoholism. I'm not scared to talk about my past. I'm not scared to talk about things I'm working on personally. And what that's done is, and I talked about the relationship part of this business. I might not be the most analytical guy out there, but I do feel like I'm fairly good at building those relationships and listening, which is something that I did not really know how to do before.
There you
So,
go. Yeah, that's
yeah.
incredible.
So it's not so much stocks and bonds and a lot of the very important work that I do for clients, but it's about the relationship and the fact that they are comfortable and they know who they're working with and they know what they're going to get.
Yeah.
Was that a roundabout way to answer that question?
Well,
Okay.
it was the part you said about listening. One of the things you told me is that in your staff meetings, you would bring in the topic of, how are my clients doing emotionally instead of seeing them as a checkbook and a number. You spoke to their what may be going on with them along with, what you're offering them. And
Mhm.
you found that was like advantageous to
I'll
building a
give you
relationship and honest, safe, and showed integrity.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here's an example. We had a client event yesterday, actually, up at the Laguna Beach Lawn Bowling Club. There you go. I'm doing something that I never would have thought I would have done with clients, but we're out there and on a beautiful day in Laguna, lawn bowling. And I noticed a client that was kind of sticking to himself and off to the side. And so instead of eating lunch with everybody else and socializing with multiple clients, I went and ate lunch with him off to the side. Well, it turns out um, and I knew this already, but I didn't. He lost his wife about a year and a half ago, and so he was kind of wandering around, and I went to check on him and make sure he's okay. And but it turns out that where we were at in Heisler Park in Laguna was their favorite place to go. So he was
Uh,
having a lot of emotion come up and he was just fine. Uh, and I was there to talk to him and be more than a financial advisor. And so things happen are unfolding and happening just how I think they should be happening. But I don't know if I would have been in that headspace to necessarily do that 6 years ago.
Right.
Well, isn't it true? I just tell me what you think in terms of your own experience, but doesn't that come, that power to do that and the freedom to do that and the desire to do that come from a recovery practice that it promotes self-compassion? I mean, for me, dealing with people, s- if I, as I've learned to improve my relationship with others, it's partly because I've learned to improve my relationship with myself.
Right.
That oftentimes I mean, it's still true. I mean, you were hinting at it earlier. It's still true that every once in a while I'll see somebody and I'll get angry and enraged at behavior or something. And then like, I've been in this work long enough to have my first response being, okay, what's going on with me?
Yeah.
As opposed
Yeah.
to just focusing outward on that person, that asshole, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
Something shifts, and that's what recovery's done for me. I wonder what your experience is with that.
Yeah. I've had a number of experiences like that. I think at the one of the shows that I did with you guys, I talked about there was a homeless lady that, kind of caught me by surprise. And in the moment of her chatter and nonsense, I had this moment of compassion and this idea that just this sensation that went through my body, and it happened in a matter of seconds. Um, but what I've learned, going back to your point, Marty, is um, it's it's I'm healing from that. I'm getting it's we're both getting something out of it. It's this is not missionary work, and it's no, I do it for me as well. And that's why I'm willing to go on a show like this. That's why I've talked about my story on my own podcast. I think it's important for clients to know exactly who is managing their money, who's running their financial plan. I think transparency is very important, but it's healing for me. Those are my check-ins, if you will, periodically when it comes up, and I talk about my story. So yeah, to me, it's a way to go back and revisit some of the work we've done and give back too.
Yeah, I don't know if what your initial reaction was in meeting John, and that's something you want to talk about. I'd love to hear it, and John can close his ears. But what I remember, one of the things I remember most about when I first met John, and viewers of this podcast will know that I met John when a men's group that I belonged to from my church back in 2009, 2010 decided to bring John in to facilitate our group meetings. And I think, John, you facilitated us for about 3 years. And you would
Mhm.
say something like, I'm doing this to learn more about myself. And I remember the first couple of years hearing that, and my voice was, what kind of bullshit is that? I mean,
Mhm.
you're here to help me, aren't you?
No,
And John would go, no, no, that's nice if that happens, but I'm not really here for that as a purpose. My purpose here is to continue to learn more about myself. And it took me a long time in doing this work to gravitate toward that perspective for myself. It's like, yeah, each one of us is this incredible universe of potential and desire and history, experience, and so forth. And there's no end to it. And it's like, let's go find out more.
Yeah, yeah.
Before you get started, I remember the first time you were in my class, and I went through my regular introduction where I said, I'm not here to help you, um, um, uh, that you hold value as a human being. And I was saying all these things, and that what was going through your mind when you first met me and heard me say what I said.
It was highly uncomfortable, very
yeah,
uncomfortable.
yeah,
It was a mix of everything. Not only were you playing the flute, but you were saying what you were saying, and then you were also letting the class know that you want what they want.
yeah.
And you referenced, if you want to fall asleep in the class, I understand I have a feeling now. Well, I don't know if you said it in this way, but now that I know you and I know what you're doing, I know why you're falling asleep. Or if you want to go out after this class and go drink, I can't control you. I want what you want.
Right.
And it was very confusing for me, um, because when I met you, this was my second attempt at sobriety, and the first attempt was AA based.
Yeah,
And so it wasn't the right program for me. It was very much, I felt like the finger was almost pointed at me as this is what I'm doing, this is what's happening in your body, and all this stuff. So I was confused on not only what the message was, but who's this mysterious man playing the flute, and then why is he giving me the power to go drink if I want to? Um, I knew there was something intriguing about him, and I knew I wanted to hear more.
yeah,
That's it. I didn't
that's it. Yeah,
understand really a thing what you were saying,
right. Yeah,
and that took a long time. I mean, it took. I think I was in the program actually for 4 months, and then we worked together one on one, and then We did the practitioner program and all sorts of things. So yeah, but I would say for anyone that's out there for the first time hearing this or just getting involved and they're listening to this podcast, if there's discomfort, that is normal. Yeah.
Yeah, I know from my own experience that somebody thinking they knew what was best for me was off-putting. Um, um, and I've learned to speak to the person's value in my introduction and my introducing myself. One of the things I say as a drug and alcohol counselor, I'm not against drugs and alcohol. It's your choice, your life, your choice. I'm not going to interfere with your choice. Now, if you want information about sobriety or whatever you're looking at, it may not be sobriety that you're looking for. When I first got into recovery, it wasn't sobriety I was looking for. It was manageability of my drinking that I was looking for. And I come to find out, made the decision early in my recovery that, let's just try it not for a moment. And that moment now has turned into 37 years. And I speak to your value, which most people aren't used to hearing. They don't know what to do. They're used to being told what to do. This is what you should want. This is how you get there. You follow these rules and everything will be okay. No, that's part of the problem. So, and then I introduced the concept that accountability for where you find yourself, blame-free, judgment-free, like I have a problem. My problem was alcohol. I also had a problem with what I call rageaholic, which if you boil that down, you could say easily that I'm violent on an emotional, verbal, and sometimes physical level. So I'm violent, that's where I'm at. And when I say that, just say the truth of where I'm at, blame-free, judgment-free. This is key, blame-free, judgment-free, just stating the data. I feel something. And what I feel is whatever motivated the behavior of violence, which kept people away, that was in alignment with my childhood. I was safe alone. People got around. I was confused. I didn't know what to do. What do they want? How am I supposed to do this? And I'm doing it wrong anyway. So the violence was in alignment, and I could feel the impact. I could become lucid in that moment and go, "Ooh, this is not okay. What do I want to change it with?" And then we move into the intent in this process. I'm mean, I'm violent. Oh, I intend to be kind. I intend to be gracious. I intend to be loving, caring, nurturing father. Take a breath and then see what happens. That flies in the face of most therapeutic communities where the expectation is that you try to be good. Well, that me trying to be good got me to where I was violent and irritated, agitated, otherwise annoyed, full of resentment, bitterness, contempt, and never addressed the resentment, bitterness, contempt, just addressed something that didn't assuage that or heal that or notice that resentment. And I just carried it with me to another activity, or it would pop up unexpectedly when I thought I was doing okay, and boom, I was back in that pattern. So
Yeah, I see that a lot. Talking about work, when you're looking at finances are very emotional, right?
yeah.
Financial decisions, and we do see clients in patterns of behavior that, let's call it credit card debt,
Yep.
okay, or investment decisions. Once the share price hits a certain level, I am going to sell. Guess what happens when it hits that certain level? They don't sell because now they're greedy.
Yeah.
Or I think it's human to have gotten in the credit card trap at one point in our lives or another. So, but yeah, we're all there. So, but I see it, and now I'm able to speak to it in a different light. So I do counsel my clients on that, and I tell them this is a pattern of behavior, and we go through not in as much detail as we would in a session, but we do go through it, and they start to realize, what they're doing and how this is in the moment when they're in that irrational mind, they can't see that it's happened 5 times before, right?
No, no.
And it's destroyed their credit or whatever it was. So we have to get them to know that life will come up again, and you'll have a moment when you are not necessarily in a rational mind, but we're going to have to resort to a different pattern of behavior, or try to implement a different behavior. So I am, that's how we are slowly bringing this into certain clients. So it's been, I've absolutely had accountability and intentional living program. I've had it implemented, and it's influenced my kids, my wife.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
In profound ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Same here with my children. It's just incredible.
So one thing, and we don't really have an agenda here, so I'm just going to go for it.
Go for it.
But
I can always hit the mute button.
So one thing about, I started this program for one thing. Well, actually, when I checked into West Coast, I wanted to make sure they had couples counseling, because it was my wife with the issue. Then I realized I needed sobriety, or I wanted sobriety. So I found sobriety. I became a better partner. I became a better parent. I wouldn't say better. I'd say healthier.
Yeah.
My relationships were becoming healthier.
Yeah.
A better business partner.
Yep.
Healthier business partner. And it's not necessarily the sobriety. So this work builds on itself.
Yeah.
Right. As you start peeling back the onion and getting deeper and deeper. And so now I'm at the point where I'm working on a healthier me. And a healthier me is, I have some autoimmune issues going on where I've had some battles with my eyes over the last 6 or 7 years. And I thought it was alcohol related. Not so much. I thought it was stress related, not so much. And you go all the way down, and here I am. I'm still with the eye issues, and we've chalked it up to, now it's going to be diet. So I got to focus on my diet and go in there. But there's always going to be something if you follow this. It's not going to be, I got sobriety. Okay, now you have that fulfillment back in your life, and on you go. If you follow this work, there's more. There's more.
Yes.
There's more.
There's always more. Yeah.
Yeah, but the difference is, and I'm saying this to the newcomer who may be watching, the difference is that the more comes at us in a way that we can choose on how to receive it, on how to befriend it. That John and I have talked about this on the podcast numerous times, but that there's a liberation that occurs when I no longer feel imprisoned by compulsions, but I actually have clarity about what's going on with a wounded little boy who just wants to be loved and does
Sure.
not know how to ask for it. In fact, wouldn't ask for it because he's just petrified the answer would be no. And so what he knows how to do is generate stress, anxiety, fear, grief, and all of those emotions that oftentimes show up with nothing going on around me to explain why they're there. So now I've learned to just, whenever I have those feelings, okay, little Marty's lonely, little Marty's unhappy, and I just stop and be with him. And how do you be with a scared little kid? Well, you're a dad. You guys are both dads. When your little ones are 2, 3, 4, they fall down, they hurt themselves at a playground, or somebody looks at them cross-eyed in a school classroom or whatever. You just hold them.
Mhm.
You just be with them. You just offer them steady and consistent companionship. And you just tell them they're going to be okay. And if there's a wound that needs to be bound up, you bind it. But what happens when I've learned to do that for myself is I'm freed from those compulsions, those fears that seem irrational. And now I have a life to live.
Yeah.
Now I have a life to live.
Mhm.
And sometimes I get up, I'm retired, so sometimes I get up in the morning and go, what do I want to do with today? I may have nothing on the calendar.
Yeah.
And I may choose to do nothing.
That's okay.
What a concept.
Mhm. Mhm.
Or I
I
may
see
choose
those.
to get busy and do something that involves a lot of attention or whatever.
Yeah. Well, you talk about sobriety. To me, sobriety was not that. How to explain this? It wasn't. I guess it wasn't my first choice, right? Let's put it that way. It wasn't what I wanted to do at the moment. Okay. As these other opportunities come up to be a healthier parent, a healthier partner, work on myself, I see those as gifts. This isn't a chore. This is something that I get to choose to do. And now I'm at a point in my life where I'm present enough to acknowledge what this is. Is it going to be work? Sure. Am I have to give up some fun things to eat? Sure. But I get to do that. And it's not coming with this, I guess this, this negative feeling that I'm missing out. I'm losing. No, I'm gaining. This is a gift. I get, one thing I told John many times is that I got sober at 40. Um, I am so excited that I have the second half of my life with this mindset,
Yeah.
and you have people that get sober at 40, 50, 60, whatever age, and they look back on those years that they weren't in control of their life, and they want to beat themselves up and say, no, 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 it is what it is. Those got you to the point to where you're here today, and you know why you're sober or whatever it was. So now you have this next part of your life to be in control and balance. Yeah,
Yeah.
clarity.
Yeah, you're at choice now. You actually choose consciously, and you can defer things that normally you wouldn't to garner things that you know are of value. So yeah,
Well, going back
Yeah.
to something you said earlier, Ruben, and John, you also mentioned it. One of the things that makes the process that you develop for us and offer to us so powerful is that it's voluntary. There's no coercion at all. As a facilitator, I'm always conscious of when someone says, "Oh, I should do this" or "I must do that," and it's like, well, like maybe you don't have to do anything. It's not about have to. It's about choose to. And we live in a culture that believes things are broken and need to be fixed. And it's like everybody's busy fixing things, and that includes ourselves. Well, what if I ain't broken?
Yeah.
What if I ain't broken so I don't need to be fixed? So I can work with things that bother me because I choose to, not because I have to. And so um, Ruben, I don't know if I told the story back in when we were in our facilitator group several years ago. One of the first things I got to do when I met John is John let me come and observe him working in the jail, and I still won't forget when he did his intro with them after playing the flute and saying, I'm not here to get you to stop drinking or using or whatever, and I'm here just to support you in creating the life you want to live. Now, those are the words I remember. You may have said something different, but
Pretty right on. Yeah.
um, what amazed me is I was watching these guys. There were about a dozen guys in the room, and they were all kind of like what you were saying about your experience. They were all kind of like looking like, what? And I had this insight, it's like, this is maybe the first time in their lives they've been treated like adults.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
like, an adult to adult relationship is I support you being who you are, you support me being who I am, and if we want something from each other, we ask. We don't compel, we don't force, we just sort of offer. And that was a methodology you know, I worked in government. I was used to the power of force and coercion, and
Uh,
to watch this utterly voluntary way of doing things, and then watching how people responded, and of course I noticed my own response, is like, yeah, I'm much more likely to respond to an invitation than to a command.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like
Well,
the way you put that. Yeah. Yeah. It's an invitation, definitely an invitation.
to me, choice is everything. Perhaps why my first program didn't work out so well is because I was being talked to, as opposed to being guided or enlightened or educated. Um, uh, so for me, the most rewarding part about this program and why it worked for me is that I was able to take the information and sit on it, let it absorb. And John was very patient and working me through intentions and bringing up ideas and thoughts that were maybe I wasn't ready to reveal. But it worked, and I'm able to determine what my next intention is based off the feeling I'm getting at that moment. And there's no
Yeah.
wrong or right. It is what it is. And when that feeling comes up again, I very well could have the same intention or a different one.
Right.
And again, and again, and again, you keep repeating this. And so the choice was very important to me. And I would say the pace was very important to me because um, some things I found the deeper items that I was working on, it took longer to come to surface.
Yeah.
I would have intentions that would take me a couple of days. I would have intentions that would come out right away. And here I am 5.5 years later, and I'm working on my personal health. If you would have plugged this into some other program, maybe I would have been sober. I would have worked on a couple of different things, and within 12 months, I would be working on diet, right? But this is my pace, and that's okay, and I'm okay with my pace.
Yeah.
So I don't have expectations. I guess around being excellent or perfect anymore. I am me.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah. I'm the author. Let me put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually hard for many of us, including me, to own the possibility that as the author, I'm perfect at it.
You are, yeah. Your story is exactly how it should be written.
Exactly.
And will be, and will continue to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
On our list of accountability practice principles, I think the first one is I'm always getting what I want. Now, I'm always
Mm.
getting what I want. It's just a version of I'm always creating the life I want. And
Right.
and we can't not do that. Um, and so it's just a question of consciousness. So if I'm always getting what I want and the things I'm getting, in my conscious mind, I say, I don't want that. I don't want this stress. I don't want to keep getting into a job where I hate the boss and I have to quit. Or the experience that I had that got me into the program is I don't want to keep using up my credit or opening up my credit cards and putting myself into deep debt. Well, yes, I do. It turns out, yes, I did because I kept doing it. That was the result I was getting. So what John taught me is that if my conscious mind doesn't want it, my subconscious mind's wanting it. And then that's where the work is. How do I access that subconscious? And it turned out the subconscious mind is where that wounded little kid's energy and beliefs and fears live. And
Yeah.
so learning how to access those, which is essentially in the Adult Children of Alcoholics program, we call it reparenting, learning how to give that kid the love, the unconditionality, but also, as you were said, the guidance that he didn't get as in my family of origin. It just my parents couldn't do it. They were great people. I love them. I'm grateful to
Mhm.
them, and they didn't know how to do it.
Yeah. John, you say we're all doing the best we can given what we know.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I always make the best decision I can with the information I have. Although 9/10 of the information I have is stuck in my subconscious, although active
in my material for the decision I make. It influences the decision, only I'm not aware of it. So if I go to the end result, all that stuff's in there, and just say the truth of where I find myself, and blame-free, judgment-free. That truth of where I find myself validates whatever happened to me as a child to think I needed to be there to be safe, which hurt as an adult. But the child, the child, one of the things we say in Adult Children of Alcoholics is that we recreate family of origin body chemistry. So if in my family of origin I was mostly in an adrenaline rush, I was either fight, flight, freeze, please, and most of my adrenaline was flee or freeze. Then in my adult life, the only thing my body knew to keep me to survive was maintaining that state. So I would recreate it in my adult life. And this is all subconscious, which makes no rational sense. Then I'd be faced with this really awkward situation again, because it's a pattern, and then have to explain rationally. And there's no rational explanation other than I'm an idiot or they're out to get me. And that's where I went. They were either out to get me or I did something. I was messed up and it's my fault. But no, I am actually a creative being. And from the misinformation from my unresolved complex post-traumatic stress, the end result is where I survive. Now, one of my intents is to move from surviving to thriving, which I put that in my subconscious, and it had to figure out a way to like give me experiences where I could experience thriving and not die and not be shamed or not be ridiculed. Also, I do it again. One of the things I wrote down recently with a conversation with Daniel Gutierrez is willingness, repetition, and discipline. So I had the willingness to heal. I had the willingness to grow. I had the willingness, and my willingness sounded like I want out. I want out. That's all I knew how to say. The repetition was at first going to meeting after meeting after meeting, and then when I disseminated this information, going to the tree, going to the tree, going to the tree, finding myself in this validated place, and then creating intents. I intend to be kind. I intend to be a loving, caring, nurturing father. And after a while, not trying to figure it out or make it happen, I found myself in a kind act. I found myself being a loving, caring, nurturing father in the presence of my children. It's just amazing. Yeah.
And for those of you who may be watching for the first time or the first few times, John's talked about going to the tree. This is a shorthand for the accountability tree. And we're not going to get into the details of that in this podcast, but there's numbers of podcasts that we've done that really go into how the tree works. What does it mean? Yeah. So please feel free to look on our Intentional Living YouTube page and find just search under accountability tree and get some of the videos that John and I have done on that practice. Now we've referred to it. Ruben's referred to it. I've referred to it in this podcast. And it's just simply a process of feeling the truth of what's going on in the moment.
Yes.
Particularly when it's something that's really difficult or that in the past we might have tried to push away or drink away or workaholic ourselves away or rage away. Mm-hmm. No, just stay with that feeling. And in the feeling state, ask ourselves what we want. And I use the word formalize that by making it an intention. I intend to feel joyful. I intend to feel happy. I intend to feel safe. I intend to feel powerful, whatever it is. And as you were saying, John, the repetition, the more we do this practice, it doesn't take long once you get it down, because it's actually pretty simple. The elements are simple, not always easy, but the elements are simple.
And it's demonstratable.
Yes.
You get you see in the present moment a demonstration of different. And it's like, and that noticing different, you can like, that's where the rational mind comes in. How did I get this? Oh, I got it in the process of doing the accountability. I got it in the process of going to a meeting. I got it in the process of examining my own motivation behind what I think I know, that got me the results that I have. I used to say in my relationship, the first argument I had with the woman I was in a relationship usually was the last argument I had when the door hit me in the ass, with no resolution whatsoever, just over and over and over, until I learned to understand my part in this pattern. How did I assist recreating? Because that wasn't even in my mind. It was always them. Um, and then when I realized that I was participating in this, I stopped my participation, and the conversation changed. The argument became resolved. The argument wasn't even an argument anymore. I had this picture in my mind of me yelling and screaming at somebody that was yelling and screaming back at me. And what we were really saying is, I love you. No, I love you. And it was like spit was coming out. But that's what we were, in my experience, that's what I was asking for. I wanted to be loved and I wanted to love somebody. And it blew my mind when I saw that picture, and I just like took a breath and, okay, I'm done. I'm done with this. I went out. So
You mentioned something different, and that's one thing that I grasped onto in the very beginning is that you'll
yeah,
notice something different. It doesn't mean that you're not going to follow through with the behavior that you say you don't want to do,
Correct.
but you've slowed down, you've acknowledged it, and that's how it starts. So I think for someone that's new into accountability, I look for the small wins. Okay, I call them small wins, but look for the small subtle changes because that's the sign that your reticular activating system, right? Your subcon it's starting to slow down a little bit. It's giving you, and that's where you get choice.
Yeah.
Now, as that gets a little bit slower, that's where, okay, I'm going to need a minute. I'm going to take a breath. You know,
Right.
that's where you really start seeing the drastic changes. At least that was my experience.
Yeah. Not true. Not true. Really.
Um, the other you mentioned something about the vision or the you had this picture in your mind and one thing I was thinking about before the show was I had, getting into this work, I had ideas of what it meant to have freedom, peace, to love myself, to be a loving father, the numerous intentions that I created, and and the vision. I will tell you, I have everything that I wanted, and it doesn't look anything like
Yeah.
what I thought it would look like.
No.
I'm not in North Carolina. I wanted, in the middle of my recovery in the beginning there, I wanted to be surrounded by like-minded people that were all seeking the same thing. And John, you created your Saturday morning group, and when I had the idea of what that looked like, or a vision of what that looked like, it was a bunch of people in my demographic. Well,
yeah,
the reality is, at least it was. I haven't been on the Saturday meeting in a while, but it was predominantly female, and they were probably 20 to 30 years older than me. But that was I got what I wanted.
Yep.
It was my vision. Is that what I pictured? No, but I got what I wanted, and that's exactly what I needed, and what I was seeking for.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this work is always, I think, being not as involved in practicing on a regular basis. I would like to say the work is always there, or it's always under the surface. Right now, I'm coaching soccer, and I'll say that our team has not started out too well, and I'm getting a lot of opportunities to kind of reflect and see and remind myself that this is exactly what I wanted. But yeah, I always get what I want, right?
Yeah.
But it is an opportunity for me to really to go back and take a breath and just go through this whole process and remind myself what this is all about, and I don't think I would have coached 6 years ago. And I certainly wouldn't have had the patience that I have right now.
Yeah. Wow. Very good.
One of the things that you just talked about as a process, so this is a process issue, which is that John and I have talked about this on the podcast a lot, that the work is best done in group. And when you walk into your first AA meeting, or you walk into your first ACA meeting, or your first intentional living meeting, you have no control over who's in that room.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it's we're called upon to find a way to be vulnerable in a group setting. And I remember when I first started going to ACA back in San Francisco years ago, I didn't say a word for 11 months. I just sat in the meeting. I was mostly pissed off.
Yeah.
I was mostly pissed off in the meeting because they called on the same people over and over again. And but something happened at the 11th month, and like people turned beautiful, and I started loving everybody, and I spoke up, and it's like there's something about being in like-minded people, as you were saying, Ruben. There's something about that. There's a healing energy. It's not necessarily obvious to many of us the first time, and yet, John, you've said on this podcast many times that in your first meeting in AA, you had this sense that I want to come back to this. I
Yeah.
want more of this. So we all may have slightly different experiences, but the group has a collective spiritual healing energy that on our own, I mean, we all have it too. Obviously, we're bringing that to a group meeting, but something about the melding of all of it together offers us an environment that I call it an accelerant. I call it a recovery accelerant. And even if you sit in a meeting and never say a word, you're still going to get that power, that energy, that love, that when two or more are gathered together in my name, as the Christian scripture says, two or more are gathered in the name of recovery, there's something there that makes a difference.
I agree with you. I feel even in meetings where it wasn't me sharing, but I'm present for someone else working through or healing. I found that those are some of the most powerful meetings for me, and the reason being is I think in large part the traumas physically may not be the same, but the emotions are the same. The feelings are the same. So going back to that Saturday morning meeting, someone might be sharing that I don't necessarily have any real relation to or commonalities with, other than the underlying trauma. The feeling is the same. So I'm able to work through that with them. I'm also able to provide them the healing space that they need. So, John, I think you always talk about or often refer to the traumas occur in the presence of people, and so does the healing. So to me, I see, I would be on those Saturday meetings for a year and a half, 2 years, however long I was on them, and rarely would I share, but I was getting a lot out of. Absolutely. So I agree with you.
One of the sneaky reasons I raise that is because we're coming to the end of our time together here shortly, and I want to make sure that those of you who are watching this know that there are 4 different meetings of intentional living group process that are available. They're all on Zoom. They're Monday night, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday night, and Saturday morning, Pacific Coast time. And information on how to join any of those meetings will be on a card at the end of the podcast. And so we invite you to feel free to come to a meeting. You're never required to do anything. You don't even have to check in. We have a formal check-in process. How are you feeling in your body, etc. You don't have to do that. You can come and keep your camera off, and or you can come and dive into the deep end, and whatever's moving you is welcome. As we said, there's no requirement in this work. The requirement is something each of us determines for ourselves. What do I want to do? How do I want to be in this meeting? No one will ever say, Marty, what's on your mind? Or we might if you've been around long enough, but we certainly won't say that to a newcomer.
Right.
So so again, please feel free to if you find anything that inspires you as you listen to us today, please feel free to come to a meeting and check it out in greater depth for yourself, because this work has to be done by each of us individually, but the group will support us as we take it on. So before we wrap up, Ruben, again, thank you so much for coming. Any last minute thoughts? Anything that's on your mind before we finish up?
I'm just very grateful for both of you and the opportunity to come on and share. I've had a lot of emotion come up during this meeting and this conversation, and I just want to let you know I appreciate you guys.
Cool. Let's not make it 4 years before the next one.
Yeah, you let me know. I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready. I could keep going right now.
All right. Great. John, any last minute thoughts?
I appreciate both of you, and I love both of you. Yeah, this is cool.
Love you too.
Back at you.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thanks, gentlemen, and we'll do it again.
You got it. Thank you,
Thank you.
Marty.
Take care.
Good, man.